We've got some more news revolving around the Boston Celtics as a major update comes in from a key insider letting us know that another team is interested in a Celtics player amongst the team trying to shed some salary and drop below those second aprons. So what could this mean for the Boston Celtics, and does it ultimately make sense for this team to be trying to acquire a player like Jrue Holiday? Well, we'll be diving and exploring all of that and more on this episode of Celtics Digest. I am Bruce Veliz, and you guys have been absolutely fantastic showing your love and support for Nick, Patrick, and I on these videos, and we really do appreciate it. We also do appreciate everyone that came through to the stream yesterday with Nick NBA, as we had a fantastic time diving in and looking at the NBA draft prospect that he likes, talking about some potential trade aspects for the Boston Celtics as well, and going over that Jaylen Brown surgery. So if you missed that, definitely go check that one out. It was a fantastic discussion with our boy Nick NBA, and if you do enjoy those type of discussions and content, definitely make sure to stay tuned, as we'll be having more guests coming over in the summer, and we're going to be having some great discussions here over on Celtics Digest on those Wednesday streams. But without further ado, let's dive in and let's get into today's video at hand today, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure to grab that snack and let's get to it. And we're going to be discussing this again. Yes, we are the Celtics, as we all know, are in the trade rumors being talked about with discussions as they're looking to shed some salary. If we look at the Boston Celtics and we look at their salary cap, we know $231 million projected already right now, sitting $24 million over the second apron. And the Celtics, team that can't deal with those restrictions of the penalties of losing first round picks and stuff like that, but also trying to not pay $500,000 in the luxury tax, are going to have to shed salary. Specifically with Jayson Tatum being injured this season, it doesn't make sense to have this roster all continuing together for those repercussions that are coming into play. So the names of Jrue Holiday, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porziņģis, and Sam Hauser have been thrown out there. We have obviously heard the discussions of Jaylen Brown and Derrick White from Shams Charania, as he yesterday was saying, "Oh, they're going to listen to offers. They're willing to listen." That's the same nonsense that Shams Charania has been talking about since the beginning. Shams Charania, I can tell you right now, has no keen information on the Boston Celtics because the Celtics are keeping it wrapped up tight. They're not telling Shams Charania anything. That's why every time he goes up on the show and you see a Celtics report, it's the same thing. Jayson Tatum, untouchable. No crap. He's injured for the season as their star player. Could they trade Jaylen Brown or Derrick White? Potentially. Are they going to? No, unless they're given a godlike offer for either player. And I don't see teams across the league doing that. I don't see teams helping out the Boston Celtics by giving them these godsend offers to potentially rebuild their squad. So I do think that those guys will stay. But going away from that, we do know some players that are potentially out on the market for the Celtics. Like I've mentioned, guys like Jrue Holiday, Kristaps Porziņģis, Sam Hauser, and one of them was brought up today was Jrue Holiday once again, as the Sacramento Kings are searching for a point guard and are expected to show interest in 3 ex-Celtics point guards: Malcolm Brogdon, Marcus Smart, and current Celtics point guard Jrue Holiday. It was notoriously known by new general manager Scott Perry that he immediately highlighted the Kings needing for an improved playmaker during his introductory press conference, and sources have duly linked Sacramento to various guards known to be available this summer. The list includes Holiday in Boston, Smart in Washington, and even stretched to the more affordable free agent ball handlers like Malcolm Brogdon. Now, this makes sense for the Sacramento Kings. We all know that even at the end of last season, when Domantas Sabonis was asked on what they need, he said, well, we need a point guard. And the funny thing is the Kings have had 2 point guards, right? We all remember the Tyrese Haliburton for Sabonis trade, viewed as a win-win for both sides. Clearly is completely skewed at this point with Tyrese Haliburton being in the finals with the Pacers, with them winning that trade. But not only just that, they traded away Tyrese because they had a guard in De'Aaron Fox, who then ultimately left this offseason. So now the Kings are stuck with Zach LaVine, Malik Monk, and they are stuck with Keon Ellis, who Keon Ellis is a pretty solid defender, but they all play the 2 guard position. None of them can play the point guard position. And the Kings need a point guard to set up this lineup and really instrumentally run it. Now, before we dive into kind of exploring these guys, I do think it's funny that a guy in Zach LaVine was not mentioned on this list because Lonzo Ball, because once again, the Kings have Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, and they were both on the Kings, and they were similarly on the Kings with Lonzo Ball too, and he's another point guard that could kind of be out there, and I think it would be funny if the Sacramento Kings tried to rebuild the Chicago Bulls out west and once again realize that it cannot work. But When you talk about these three names, I think it's very interesting. Obviously, for the Celtics, it makes sense why a team like the Kings would be interested in Jrue Holiday. He can kind of seemingly fit in, play that point guard position alongside a guy in Zach LaVine, be that defensive insulator that this team would, needs, and another leader. The only problem with that is Jrue Holiday obviously making a decent amount of money, making $32 million, and the Kings would be able to fit that into their team this season. If we do look, obviously sitting at $170 million, they are under the tax threshold, so they could take in a contract like Jrue Holiday. But with them having so many free agents, taking on a big contract in Jrue might necessarily hinder this team, because once again, Zach LaVine making around $50 million, Jrue Holiday making around $32 million. The Kings would be paying almost $80 million to their point guard and to their shooting guard. And both of those contracts are arising, and both of those players are not getting younger. And for a Sacramento Kings team that obviously wants to compete, still be dominant in the Western Conference, I don't know if that's the decision you want to make, specifically if you're going to be the 8th seed or something like that in the West. Now, we want to look at the other names that I mentioned, Marcus Smart and Malcolm Brogdon, some former Boston Celtics as well. Maybe the Sacramento Kings just know the Celtics have some good guards that can play some hard defense, and that's what they want to bring into their team. Scott Perry kind of analyzed that, and that's why he's looking at these three guys. I do think Marcus Smart makes sense for the team. Once again, kind of play that a little bit more of a two-guard position, but can play that point guard position. Malcolm Brogdon, I think, is seemingly the best fit, but once again, has some of those defensive limitations as an offensive creator and offensive scorer, and also has some injury concerns linked to his name as well. Once again, with all three of these guys, they kind of all have those injury concerns. For Sacramento, really trying to identify that key point guard with these three guys doesn't really make the most sense. Once again, maybe a Tyus Jones kind of looks a little bit better for Sacramento. I don't necessarily know, but for the Kings, to kind of get Jrue Holiday, you'd have to expect that DeMar DeRozan would be coming back in a deal for the Boston Celtics here, as that is really the only tradable contract that they truly do have on this roster. I don't see the Celtics being interested in Malik Monk because they have a guy like that in Peyton Pritchard. I don't see them being interested in Jonas Valanciunas, and obviously a guy like Domantas Sabonis is going to be too valuable for a tradable contract in Jrue Holiday. But DeMar DeRozan, I guess, could be a seemingly fit for the Celtics just for one season to play some solid minutes alongside JB, and then be on an expiring to be either moved off of in the following season, or potentially could be rerouted in a deal kind of centering around that. But like I mentioned, Jrue Holiday's been talked about surrounding some Western Conference teams already. We've broken them down, talking about the Clippers, the Mavs, and now the Kings are another one to be on that list. So as we get closer to the draft, it does seem kind of clear that a trade involving Jrue Holiday will be kind of transpiring. And with the draft being in less than 2 weeks, that is getting closer than ever. So definitely something to keep an eye on with the Boston Celtics and a lot of teams around the league. As reports from Brian Windhorst from ESPN from certain sources have said that this is going to be the craziest offseason that we have seen in the NBA. I feel like they always say that, and sometimes it always outdoes itself. So I can't wait to see what really happens on the trade market around when the finals do end or when they finally do finish. But once again, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Do you think the Kings trading for Jrue Holiday is a smart move? Personally, I don't think it is. But if you're the Boston Celtics and you can get off this contract in Jrue Holiday and be able to get some sort of assets in return that can help you plausibly, I do think that this is a good sign for the Celtics, shedding that salary once again, as that is their main goal for this team, and trying to figure out those other key identifying pieces. Once again, I don't expect Derrick White, Jaylen Brown, or any of those guys to be traded, regardless of Shams Charania saying they're willing to listen. I do expect it to be Porziņģis, guys like Jrue Holiday, and guys like Sam Hauser to be used out there on the open market. But once again, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let me know what you guys ultimately think on Jrue Holiday. Do you think he'd be a good fit for the Kings? Do you think there's a better fit for the Celtics to get via trade, or for Jrue Holiday to fit in to make a bigger impact? And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Once again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Have a great rest of your day, and go Boston Celtics. Peace out, everyone.